There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in.
All right, let the King of Glory in. Open up the door. Starts right now. So fling wide, you heavenly gates. Prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And he heard a sound behind him, and he said, behold, I looked. There was a door standing open in heaven, and I heard a voice, which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here. I will show you the things which must take place. That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass, those things which must take place, those things which are taking place even now. That is what this broadcast is all about, discussing the issues of the day, discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and world view. Good day, everybody. Andy White here. What you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. I want to welcome everybody from all across the fruited plain and all around the spherical globe. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Open Up the Doors. I'm not so sure you're hearing me all around the spherical globe right now. We are having some internet issues. I don't think the app is broadcasting right now. Can't fix it, but we are live on the FM radio on the east end of Long Island. I'm also streaming live over on my Facebook Open Up the Doors page at facebook.com/faithfm91.7. That's facebook.com/faithfm91.7, though that stream is also kind of dropping in and out intermittently. Again, unfortunately having some technical internet problems. Nevertheless, the broadcast will go on, and it is being archived, and it will be uploaded later and re-aired later today as well. I do plan on going to the phones in the second hour. If you want to jot down the phone number, 631-725-2069, 631-725-2069, if you'd like to be part of the broadcast today in the second hour. There's so much to talk about, of course, and I was almost tempted to, I resisted the temptation, but I was almost tempted to change my broadcast at the very last minute because of all the breaking news regarding a peace deal between Israel and Hamas, and ostensibly the end of the war in Gaza. That remains to be seen. I'm going to reserve all of that commentary for the second hour because I've got so much that I jam-packed into this first hour, things that are very important, things that don't change despite all of the hoopla going on right now regarding possibly the end of the Hamas war, which, of course, for the hostages and the families, that's a wonderful thing. Again, I'll address that later. But as you well know, coincidentally or not, this past Tuesday, Israel marked 2 years, just a little bit more than 2 years. Actually, it was 2 years since the October 7th Hamas terrorist jihadist attacks. And, you know, people with a working moral compass commemorated the day this past week, this past Tuesday, with a sober remembrance of the innocent lives that were ruthlessly and brutally slaughtered by demonically possessed Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists. Others, however, as unbelievable as it may seem to normal people, but others were not commemorating the day with sobriety and reflection. No. They were celebrating it and cheering for it and even calling for more October 7th to occur. The morally depraved, the deceived, The deluded and the demonically deranged were out in the streets on Tuesday all over the world in major cities, marching and reveling and celebrating what occurred 2 years ago. Again, it's hard to fathom the moral depravity that is being exhibited. On October 7, 2023, the world witnessed unimaginable horror. Innocent lives, men, women, children, and families were torn apart in a single day of darkness. And why? Because they were Jews. They were Israelis, for the most part. Let's not forget there were 40 Americans killed as well, but they were Jews as well. But Hamas, along with the PIJ, the Palestine Islamic Jihad, and yes, even so-called civilian participants joined in that satanic massacre. They came, they raped, they burned, they beheaded babies, they tortured, they maimed, they butchered, they slaughtered, and they massacred. They killed indiscriminately, they kidnapped, and then they laughed, and they danced, and they celebrated. And now, 2 years later, along with their depraved supporters, the Islamo-wokies, as I've dubbed them. Yes, the I'll get into that later. I've just created a new term called Islamo-wokies. That's what the Hamas huggers are. And all these, the multitudes of these thousands of people marching in solidarity with terrorists. They're still celebrating, and they're reveling with glee over the deaths of Jews. It's almost become a cliche to say it, but it's so fitting. Woe to those who call evil good. Woe to those who revel in their abominations. Oh, no doubt, my friends, the day is coming that they will give an account to him who will judge the living and the dead. Judgment Day is coming. But let me say this clearly, and where I want to go with my thoughts in this first hour of today's broadcast. It's more than the Jews they want extinguished. The Islamic jihadists, the Islamists, those who really take the teachings of Islam seriously and what is taught in that system and ideology. It's more than Jews they want to extinguish, though that's persona non grata number one in their estimation. But it's the whole Western world. Hear me, my friends. Just hear me on this. Hear me on this. Stay with me here. I'm going to lay this out for you. Standing with Israel in this war, and standing with Israel in all that is still yet to come, but standing with Israel against Hamas and Islamic Jihad and all the Islamists and all of their benefactors isn't just about Gaza. It isn't just about Judea and Samaria. Oh, it's about that, but it isn't just about Gaza and borders and the Palestinian state. It's about, for us who believe the Word of God, who believe in humanity, who believe in the Judeo-Christian foundations of the Western world, and what God has done through the gospel. Standing with Israel is about standing not only for democracy and freedom itself in a purely political, geopolitical sense, but it's standing with Israel for our very Judeo-Christian values and foundations of Western civilization, my friends. It's about recognizing that Israel is on the front line of the same civilizational war the West is facing, and that Israel's fight is our fight. Understand this. And I know it's going to upset some people's apple carts. But that's just something I just kind of do naturally, I guess. I don't know. But I've said this so many times. So many times. Israel is the line in the sand, my friends. And they are on the front line of the defense of our Western world. And if they fall to Islamic imperialism, the West falls with them. And we in the West, we need to open our eyes to see that this is all about a clash of civilizations. And yes, of course, anyone who knows me knows where I'm coming from. It is a spiritual war. It is a spiritual issue. But this spiritual war and this spiritual issue, it manifests itself and it works itself out in the flesh. It manifests, it works itself out in the geopolitical maneuverings of men and of nations. It is a spiritual war, but it's played out in the clash that we're seeing between the Western world and the Islamic world. It's a clash of two civilizations. One which was built upon a biblically based Judeo-Christian foundation, and the other which is built upon an Islamic foundation and worldview that is antithetical to Western civilization. And that's not just me saying that. Their own imams, their own preachers and teachers of Islam say exactly the same thing. I've got tons of stuff here in my stack of stuff, quote after quote after quote from Islamic mullahs and religious leaders. Not the westernized nominal cultural Muslims, but those who really understand and teach their religion and what Islam actually is. Something I've been talking about on this broadcast for over 11 years. And the West doesn't get it. Because the Islamists take their ideology and their religion more seriously than Christians take their Christianity in the West. I digress a bit. But we're in a clash with a worldview that are diametrically opposed to one another. And their own Muslims, their own, not Muslims, their own mullahs and imams state that quite adamantly and emphatically. That Islam is not compatible with Western democracy. That's a direct quote from an imam in Canada. And like it or not, believe it or not, as I've said time and time again, Israel is the dividing line in this spiritual warfare, in this geopolitical warfare, in this civilizational clash. It all converges. The spiritual and the natural all converges, with Israel being the dividing line. We've seen that throughout history. That's biblical history. Over 2 months ago, I shared a word that the Lord had given me one day in prayer back in June regarding a major division that the Lord showed me is coming to the church. And it really wasn't a major revelation because we've been seeing it happen for a long time. But the Lord was very specific with me in prayer one day. That he said, I'm going to repeat the word I shared with you months ago. The Lord said to me, there's a great split. And here's what's important, the terminology that the Holy Spirit used with me. There's a great split as that of a great earthquake coming to the church. And the fault line goes straight through the center of Israel. The Lord will cause a great division to arise in the church on account of Israel and the land. Again, it's exactly what we've been seeing. The Lord was just quickening it in my spirit to make it very evident to me. But here's the point. The wording, I say pay attention to the wording, because the wording was that the fault line goes straight through the center of Israel. I got that word 2 months ago. But so then 2 days ago, I come across this post from someone on X who posted this. I'm going to quote their post. When you hear the growing chorus against Israel, especially from those who once claimed to defend Western civilization, ask yourself what world they are really campaigning for. This person said, this is not about Gaza or borders. It is about whether Western civilization retains a center of gravity or collapses into a patchwork of competing empires. And then the next sentence in this person's post jumped off the phone at me, because they said this: Israel is not the cause of that battle. It is the fault line. It is the fault line. The very words the Holy Spirit gave me 2 months ago. That last sentence leaped at me. Israel is the fault line. I was reminded, I shared this as well. I shared this from another brother, some of you know, Reggie Kelly, who said this. I read a statement of his a while back where he said this, quote, God himself has made the issue of Israel a watershed of international division. Yes, indeed. The war in Gaza, let me say this. I've said all that to say this. The war in Gaza is being used and has been used as the ultimate excuse for the global civilizational jihad that is being waged in every nation and on every continent. Just look at the entirety of Europe and Canada, the U.S., Australia, Britain, and the Middle East, like I've been talking about for so long. Even Asia. It's a clash between civilizations, between Islam and every other single culture. I've been talking about this exact thing for almost 20 years now. And it's just grown and snowballed as I expected it to. Islamists around the world, through organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE here in America, the Council on American Islamic Relations, and up in Canada, the National Council of Canadian Muslims, the NCCM. And there's a whole host, literally dozens and dozens, a whole host of other Muslim Brotherhood front groups that have been building a movement throughout the Western world, and very definitely in our country as well, to start the global intifada jihad. And they are using the so-called, quote-unquote, Palestinians as cover, as their exploitation of the Palestinians. That's all they've ever been, by the way. Just looking at the entire issue of the Palestinian people, which was coined and phrased by the Muslim Brotherhood and Yasser Arafat back in the 60s, it was, I believe, or the 70s. The mantra of globalize the intifada is building momentum, my friends. And if you doubt me, all you needed to do was go and watch all the videos from the marches and demonstrations that went around the world on Tuesday. From hundreds of thousands of people in Istanbul, Turkey, celebrating and marching and supporting a global intifada, to the thousands in Manhattan, New York. Did you see the videos? They're all over Truth Social. They're all over X. Oh, of course, the mainstream media won't show these videos of what was going down in Manhattan on Tuesday night. The major networks didn't want to cover it or show it because it would expose the truth. Because our major media companies are now being bought and paid for and influenced by Qatar. and the other Muslim groups in order to moderate their propaganda. And these are just a few people on the fringe. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of people marching down 6th Avenue in Manhattan the other night. The videos are all over. Go look at them. A Palestinian flag that had to be hundreds of feet long they were being held by hundreds of people, took up almost a whole city block. All the placards, all the signs, globalized the Intifada. You want to... Folks, let me tell you this. This is worldwide, but it's in America. It's growing in America. I seriously believe Western civilization may very well be on its last legs. And I'm not being hyperbolic. You might think I'm exaggerating, but no, I've been watching this develop for a long time. And history has a way of repeating itself. And the things I'm seeing and evaluating, they completely comport with the prophetic scriptures, which is always my foundation and anchor. Why do I believe Western civilization is dying? They say the sun sets in the west. I think there's something poetic about that. The sun is setting in the Western world, my friends. Mark my words. And why do I believe the Western civilization is dying? Because on Tuesday, thousands upon thousands upon thousands flooded the streets of major Western cities to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And nobody stood up to them. Nobody covered it in the news media, or very little, without any commentary. A crowd of Islamists in New York City waving, as I said a moment ago, Hamas and PIJ flags, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a designated terror group in New York City. And they were insinuating through the speakers that they will carry out attacks in the U.S. They were blatantly saying these things. One guy stood up, bellowed out in the big PA system, speaking of October 7th, 2023. He said this to a crowd of thousands of people: "We did not act enough. We will show up again, stronger than we did the first October 7th. This is in downtown Manhattan, blatantly saying, we're going to do this again, and we're going to do it all over. We're going to repeat October 7th all over, because we've got an agenda." A Hamas leader the other day openly called for a global genocide of Jews. That's nothing new. But this was happening the other day on October 7th, in the midst of all of these marches. And this quote is, such a lovely quote. Such a lovely, lovely quote. He said this: "There are Jews everywhere. We must attack every Jew on the face of the planet. We must slaughter and kill them, God willing." What is a Jew's throat worth? 5 shekels? He was telling them to go buy a knife for 5 shekels so they could slice the necks of Jews. He said this: "Our people are ready to blow themselves up. We've built a new factory for explosive belts." I got to go to a quick break. I've got so much here, but let me finish this first block this way, because I'm going to say it again. Gaza has become the ultimate excuse for the war being waged in every nation on every continent. And I want to say, pay no mind, really, to the latest news on a peace deal with Hamas and Israel, that the war is over. Trust me, it'll be short-lived at best. But the culture war that we've been fighting in the West for years now, this culture war has morphed. It's just morphed from just being a clash between traditional mores and philosophies into a war between civilizations, a war between Islam and every single other culture. And I'm going to build on this when I come back. I've got to take a quick break here. Keep it right here, and I'll be right back. Here's Big Tent Revival. I Want the Real Thing. Without lies, disguise, and compromise. Big Tent Revival. I want the real thing. Welcome back. Andy White here on the radio, tearing down strongholds. You are listening to Open Up the Doors, Integrity in Broadcasting here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7, 93.3 in Napeague, WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. And I am here, penetrating the unseen powers of darkness, because it is a spiritual warfare, sending powers and principalities into frothy fits of frenzy by simply speaking the light of truth. And I believe the light of truth, in my estimation, to some degree, is I believe the sun is setting in the west, my friends, but it's only because a better and brighter and greater day is coming, and I'll get to that in a moment. But the more I survey the landscape and observe what is going on around the entire globe, the more I am coming to believe there is a major war coming that is going to erupt between Islam and the Western world. Not just demonstrations and protests and civil unrest, but a full-on, full-out major conflict. I hope I'm wrong, but I see it coming. Because once the Islamic Ummah is able to congeal into a caliphate, which is their goal, it will begin. And listen, folks, again, I'm not just blowing smoke here. I'm not the only one saying these things. In fact, quite honestly, there are people far smarter than me, and people much more, quote unquote, in the know than me, so to speak, who are watching these things, who are documenting the data, and they are sounding the alarm even louder than I am. Wake up, West. Wake up, church. And their diagnosis, and I'm in agreement with it, really is that the Western world is on the verge of collapse. I know a lot of people, they're not even thinking about it, especially here in Disneyland, America. But the Western world, when you look around the world, that is the West, it's on the verge of collapse. The sun is setting on the Western world. Most don't see it, or they don't want to see it. They think simply ignoring the problem will make it go away. They choose to live in a state of denial, and many reject the idea of a waning Western civilization because, quite honestly, we're a prideful people. We really are. But most of the woke Western leaders, the Macrons and others like him, the Sharma in Britain, whoever the new Canadian Prime Minister is, I can't think of his name right now, but they're all simply, they are pathetically lost. They're flailing around in the miasma of their failed globalist policies, fantasizing about a world they wish to create, even as they blindly stumble off a cliff into the arms of an Islamic caliphate that they refuse to believe is upon them. Yes, Brother Russ, I see your comment there. It is a Trojan horse. I've done so many broadcasts on the Islamization of Europe, I've lost count. Britain now has the most number of rapes in Europe. Sweden has the second most number of rapes in Europe. The entirety of the EU, with few exceptions, is increasingly becoming more and more Islamized. Indigenous Europeans are beginning to rise up with protests and demonstrations, demonstrating against what they've become. But quite frankly, in my humble estimation, I think it's too little and too late. What went wrong with their policies? What went wrong with their open borders and mass immigration? Where Angela Merkel was bringing all these Islamists in to boost up the population of Germany because of lowered birth rates. What went wrong? I'll tell you where it begins to go wrong is the naivety of thinking you could assimilate a culture that has a worldview 180 degrees opposite yours and inherently believe it is Allah's will to conquer and dominate you. And make no mistake about it, what went wrong in Europe is happening in the U.S. as well. Again, I've been talking to you in this audience for years and years on the dangers of the Islamic infiltration of the West and even America. This creeping Sharia, as I've called it. And my friends, it's not just a benign nuisance. It's a malevolent, malignant cancer that's spreading everywhere. I did a broadcast a few months ago titled The Leaven of Islam. The leaven is spreading everywhere at an alarming rate because it is, and here's the key, it is the spirit of Antichrist. And before the return of the Lord, this world will fall into its grip, even America. I got a list of here I could go through. Just quickly, in 2023, Minneapolis, Minnesota, my son lives there. He told me how annoying it is. But in 2023, in Minneapolis became the first major U.S. city to permit the Islamic call to prayer called the Adhan to be broadcast over loudspeakers at all hours of the day and night. My son is telling me, Dad, it's just annoying. These alarms, these loudspeakers go off at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. That began in 2023 in Minneapolis. Dearborn, Michigan's followed suit. The Adhan call to prayer is blasted out throughout the city. Siren loudspeakers 5 times a day starting at 5 a.m. And the city's non-Muslim citizens are not happy about that at all. But of course, my friends, you know, dimitude has to begin somewhere. A few weeks back in Texas, and I believe it was Dallas, maybe not Dallas. I have another one regarding Dallas. But and a mom was patrolling his neighborhood, warning private store owners to stop selling pork and alcohol and lottery tickets. And he was threatening these store owners. He was threatening them to suffer the consequences under Sharia law. Imagine walking into a Jewish deli. We got a lot of them around here, and telling them you want a ham sandwich, and if you don't produce a ham sandwich, I'm gonna sue you or something. No, this is America. We have freedom of conscience and freedom of choice and freedom of religion, but you see, you don't have those are democratic Judeo-Christian values. You don't have that under Sharia law. A pastor in the Dallas airport last week or 2 weeks ago was refused entry into the airport. In fact, from what I read, he was coming back probably about a month ago. From what I read, he was coming back or going to the Charlie Kirk Memorial service, and he heard in the loudspeaker in the airport that the chapel was open to everyone who would like to use the chapel for prayer. So he was in a place of remembering and praying for Charlie Kirk and his family. So he goes to the chapel in the Dallas airport, only to be refused entry by an imam because there were all these Muslims in there praying, and he was not allowed in. And he's like, well, listen, this is a public chapel. The airport just said all are invited to use it. They wouldn't let him in. You see, domination and dimitude have to begin somewhere. Again, I can go on and on and on. I've got a list of stuff. Too much to reiterate. Stuff that will blow your mind, because it'll blow your mind because you haven't heard about it, because the media won't talk about it. But let me just pick one before I move on, because I got some closing thoughts I want to get to in a few minutes. But I saw a video yesterday, and I vetted it. I wanted to see if this was really true, because the video looked like it was probably recorded in Gaza. We've seen all these videos with the Palestinians training up their kids and putting them in uniform fatigues and army fatigues and training them as little boys with rifles to storm the Al-Aqsa Mosque and liberate it from the Jews. And we've seen these videos that come from the Islamic world, particularly in Gaza. So I saw one of these videos, and it looked exactly like that. But it was labeled from being in Philadelphia. I'm like, that can't be. It can't be. But it was. It was in Philadelphia. An Islamic school was all these kids, Muslim Americans, but the kids, they're just little kids. The Muslim American Society Center in Philadelphia were being taught, and they were singing. They were all dressed up in Palestinian garb. And this is what they were singing. The same thing they sing in Gaza. They were singing, "We will chop off their heads. We will liberate Al-Aqsa Mosque. We will lead the army of Allah, fulfilling his promise. And we will subject them to eternal torture. The blood of martyrs protect us." You can see this video for yourself. You can look it up. It's put out by Memory. This video really was dated from 2019. So you say, oh, that was years ago. When the video went viral, they quote unquote apologized for it, saying, oh, it should have, well, number one, it should have never been let out into the public sphere. But they were apologizing for it. Except there's a problem with that. They did it again 2 years ago. Same thing. 2023. And these Islamic madrasas, these Islamic schools, they're all over America. And they're not teaching their children the traditional Judeo-Christian foundations of this country. They're teaching them the mores and traditions of another civilization. And this is one of the reasons I'm telling you, folks, the West, the sun is setting in the West. Because you've got a people who are not looking to assimilate. They're not looking for coexistence. They're not looking for religious freedom. They are using our system against us. And they openly say that. Again, I'm just parroting what they've said. We're going to use your democracy against you. They're not looking for coexistence. They're not looking to assimilate, but to dominate. Because that is what Islam is, and what Islam has done for the past 1,400 years. I got to go to a break. I'll be back in a minute. All right, the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. Welcome back. Andy White here on Open Up the Doors, Faith FM. Listen, a couple of quick broadcast notes. This broadcast will re-air today at 3 o'clock as normal, and then Saturday again at 1 o'clock if you've missed any portion of it. Or if you'd like to, please do me a favor if you're able to, and if you're on those platforms, Facebook, not Facebook, YouTube, and what am I on? Rumble. We update these videos to those platforms. My mind's going all over the place because we've been having some internet problems, and I think it's fixed. I think we're back streaming over the internet again. It's been cutting in and out. We've been having some problems. It's been unstable. But anyway, I'm going to move on from here. If you please look me up at on YouTube and Rumble at Andy White. Open Up the Doors. If you've never subscribed to my pages, please do so. I would appreciate that so very much. Do you plan to go into the phones in the second hour? The phone number is 631-725-2069. 631-725-2069 if you'd like to call in the 11 o'clock hour and continue this discussion. I will also be commenting on the ostensibly done deal between Israel and Hamas. But I got a couple of things I want to share in light of the things I was sharing. And I barely touched the surface. There are so many things. There are so many anecdotal reports and different things to bring up. But my point here is that I don't want to just define the problem. It's easy to define the problem, but I want to bring, if not solutions, we're not going to be able to stop what God has prophetically determined. But what are we as believers? What's to be done in the light of this situation? Because Brothers and sisters, God hasn't called us to run from the darkness. He's called us to be a light in the darkness. So I may be using the terminology, the sun is setting in the west, but I'm saying that for a reason. What is to be done about it? Number one, as believers, we need to remain steadfast in the faith. Period. Come what may. The word of God is our anchor. Your word is a light unto my feet and a light unto my path, a lamp unto my path. We don't fear the darkness. We don't fear the night, number one, as believers. So don't become downcast, but remain steadfast. That's number one. Number two, what is to be done in light of the situation? This increase in the Islamization of the West, our country, our neighborhoods? Well, quite frankly, we need to continue doing, well, maybe I shouldn't say continue doing what we're doing. Maybe that's the wrong way to say it. What we need to do is with more boldness and courage and conviction, we need to preach and teach and share the truth of the gospel with all conviction and boldness. Muslim people are not the enemy. I don't want anybody misconstruing anything I'm saying. Someone says, Andy, it sounds like you're promoting Islamophobia. No. Number one, Islamophobia is a made-up term to protect terrorists. No. I love Muslim people. I love Jewish people. I love people because God loves people. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. I hate the spirit behind them. I despise Islam because it's a counterfeit religion from the pit of hell. I despise Islam. I do not despise Muslims. I want to be very clear about that. I desire them to be saved as much as I desire Jews to be saved, as much as I desired my children to be saved. Yes. I saw something the other day that I thought was just really fantastic. I'm going to go down a bunny trail because people are always trying to pigeonhole you. You know, they want to put a wedge between you and your belief and support for Israel and for the Jewish people. And they'll say, well, aren't Jews unsaved without Jesus? Well, folks, I believe my own children are unsaved without Jesus. So it's a straw man argument. We all need Jesus. Jew, Gentile, Muslim, Catholic, I don't care, Asian, Chinese. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that who should ever believe in him should not perish but have everlasting life. We want to urge all people to come into the salvation that it can only be found in Jesus Christ. So yes, maybe we'll be infiltrated with all of these immigrants. It's an open door for outreach. Pray that the eyes and the hearts of unbelievers, Jews and Muslims and Gentiles, yes, pray that all who hear the word of truth would have their hearts open to believe it for salvation. That's what is to be done in this situation. Another thing that's very important, and I could do a whole broadcast on this, and I just might, is persevere. Perseverance and endure. He who endures to the end. God hasn't called us, brothers and sisters, to live comfortable lives. He's called us to live conquering lives. So I want to exhort and urge my brethren in ministry. I want to challenge you, my brethren. Pastors, are you preparing God's people to endure? I'll say it again. Jesus emphatically declared in the very context of describing, a time of great persecution and trial. He said, he who endures to the end will be saved. Pastors, church leaders, are you equipping God's people with what they will need to remain steadfast in the storm that will certainly come? Are we all, every one of us, as disciples of Jesus, preparing God's people to persevere in the face of trials and tribulations? Are we, who are teachers and preachers and leaders, preparing the believers to stand firm in the midst of trials and hard times? That's part of what's called equipping the saints. See, a major issue, I believe in my heart, a major issue that we have with this present generation of Christians, especially in America, is our stubbornly parochial worldview, along with a myopic and narcissistic view of what it means to even be a follower of Jesus. But the Lord told the believers in Smyrna, do not fear any of those things which you are about to suffer. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested. And you will have tribulation 10 days. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. Oh, I rebuke that. The Lord said that. That's so negative. No, it's a forewarning and a preparation to endure and to persevere no matter what, even if the devil throws you into prison. And Jesus says that you may be tested. And he's saying this. What's amazing about this passage in Revelation 2:10 is that Jesus was saying this to the church in Smyrna. The name Smyrna was a name that was derived from the word myrrh, a sweet-smelling fragrance. It was a church that Jesus had nothing but commendation for, and no rebuke nor chastisement. You might say, this is the perfect church. It had a beautiful fragrant aroma of Christ. And yet, Jesus told them that the devil was going to sift them and test them. That was his word to them. Do not fear. Be faithful unto death. Endure to the end, and I will give you the crown of life. I'm going to say something I've said several times in this broadcast. I am personally more than convinced that the sun is setting in our Western civilization. But it's all according to the prophetic word. You might think that sounds pessimistic. However, hear my heart. My exhortation to you is not meant to discourage you, but to encourage you. Because I say these things with the same earnestness, with the same heart, the same conviction as Paul did when he was speaking to the Romans, to the Roman church. He said, do this. Remain steadfast in the faith. And then he says, knowing the time. Brothers and sisters, know the time, understand the times. That now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. Therefore let us cast off the works of darkness and let us put on the armor of light. We're going to mix metaphors here. The sun is setting in the west, but the day is coming. You see, this is to draw out the analogy a bit more. You see, when the sun is setting on one side of the world, it's rising on the other side of the world, obviously. And in my analogy here, what I'm trying to convey to you is that though the sun may be setting on our Western civilization, though the sun may be setting on this very world, a new day is about to arise, my friends. It may be getting dark in the natural, but a supernatural, eternal day is on the horizon. Therefore, we don't despair. We don't get discouraged. We don't say, oh, man, that's just a doom and gloom message. No. We don't despair. But with eyes wide open and fixed on our eternal hope, we can be assured that as believers in our Lord Jesus, though the sun is setting here, it's rising on the other side of the world. And again, I'm saying that in a transcendent sense. The sun that is rising is the sun of righteousness. A new day is coming, church. A new day is coming. That's why I don't get upset and all bent out of shape with all the so-called bad news. with all the things that we should be concerned about. And I do share them, that we should be concerned about them, but not to despair, but to remain steadfast, not to discourage, but to encourage. Like I said a moment ago, though the night may be coming here in the natural, we can rejoice, my friends, because a new day is going to dawn. With keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Knowing that, as the writer of Proverbs did say, the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter, even unto the perfect day. So I want to encourage your hearts, my friend. I know there was a lot of stuff in there that might make you cringe. But don't cringe. Rise up, O Lion of Judah. I'm out of time. I'll be back. Keep it right here on Faith FM.